transgender sort of ideology sympathisers would say, were they here tonight, and there may be some as we'll hear later, that you should be kind, to use the slogan that's now increasingly in the vogue. Whenever I go on the London Underground, I see posters put up by the Mayor of London telling me I must be kind, and that you should simply...
Doesn't it make you want to just punch the person next to you?
Yes, it gets me very crotchety and gammony, I can assure you, when I see this poster and and realise I'm being sort of forced to contribute to it in some way with my taxes. So they would say, well, you should refrain from challenging the self-identity of people experiencing gender dysphoria, and that if people can freely self-identify as gay, why shouldn't they be able to also identify as a man, a woman, or maybe something completely different? How would you respond to that?
I think in two ways. One is that it's an incredibly coercive use of the phrase "be kind." I mean, it's something that is demanded, not coincidentally, more of women than of men. And it's also, I mean, I like my pop culture references, so I'll quote The Avengers. In the Avengers film, when Loki is trying to establish dictatorship over the whole of the earth, he's getting all the humans to bow down, and he says, "I am bringing world peace." And somebody says to him, "Why is it that when you say peace, I hear the other thing?" So when they say "be kind," I'm not hearing "be kind," I'm hearing "or else." So I'm happy to be kind. I'm actually a very kind person, but I expect other people to be kind to me too. And I don't think it's kind to do things like put rapists in women's jails. I don't think it's kind to sterilise gender non-conforming children. I don't think it's kind to try to hound people out of their jobs when they say, "I don't want the bloke that I work with who started calling himself Josephine last week to use the women's changing rooms and showers and get his cock out." Excuse me, but that's what people are having to face. These things are not kind. So the "be kind" is "or else." It's shut up. And the second thing, if I can remember what the second thing was, because I've got myself really cross now.
You're moving away from kindness, I fear.
The second thing is that, no, I remember what it is. To the extent that people are saying, "I want to identify myself how I feel," fill your boots. Like, all of us have many identities. It's important to me that I'm a mother, that I'm Irish, that I'm an atheist, those sorts of things. I don't think anyone else gives a toss, Like, if I wanted to join the Communist Party, they might care what my political views are. And if somebody wants to sleep with me, sorry, I've got a husband. But as a general point, it matters whether I'm gay or straight. It matters whether I'm on the market for what sort of sexual partner, yeah? It's when I now have to act in response to that person's identity. That's the problem. That's why I said it's not gender self-identification. It's the insistence that other people identify you as what you say you are. So I say I'm an atheist. I have friends of all religions and none. And, they can say to me, "Oh, you say you don't have a soul. You think there's no life after death. God knows you do have a soul." And I'm like, yeah, fine. I don't think you have a soul. And the pair of us just get on with it. But if a man says to me, "I'm a woman," like, all right, fine. But what do you want me to do about that? If you don't want me to do anything, that's fine. You can wear what you like, you can wear makeup, you can do what you like to your hair. If you think that means you can come into the women's changing rooms, you are now imposing on me. And I'm not okay with that. If you are saying, I have to say, when I look at you, I see a woman, I don't see a woman. I've got my right to my perceptions and my conscience. So if you want to say I'm a woman and I'm allowed to say, "Fill your boots," I don't think so, we're good. If you think you can constrain my speech and take away my rights and my things that I need to move in the world as a woman, namely single-sex spaces, single-sex sports, and so on, then no, it's not okay, and you're the one who's being unkind, not me.
So part of in a way, the sort of strategic brilliance of this strange movement is that it's been able, it seems to me, to hide its fundamentally illiberal or authoritarian objectives, but using this kind of sickly, mawkish, sort of Orwellian doublespeak. So they go on about hate. You've been accused of being a hateful person, haven't you? I mean, you were banned from speaking at Cambridge University when you recently...
I made it, but they had a protest and they banged on the doors.
And so you're accused of engaging in hate speech, and yet often the people who are advancing this sort of ideology are extremely hateful people, not very kind people themselves. I mean, they go and physically attack people who are trying to organise, feminist meetings or what have you. We've seen all the stuff that's been happening
clever,
recently.
It's
really
very clever.
Quite extraordinary.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is related to what you said earlier about, if you control speech, you control reality. The postmodern turn really takes that to the extreme. So if people are going to insist on looking at men who say they're women, and I'm using one way around, obviously it goes both ways, but I'm staring at a man, so I'm pretending that Mark is being my object here. If Mark says he's a woman, and I say, whatever you like, you can say what you like inside your head, I still see a man. I'm screwing it all up, so I have to be silenced. And so you can silence people by social coercion of various sorts, by shame, by deplatforming, by threatening their jobs. Mostly just kind of, people don't like to stand up and say, emperor has no clothes, I'm not seeing a woman, sorry. But in the end, there has to be the threat. There has to be something that, maybe most people don't experience it, but it has to be there as a last resort, the same way that states, say that they need to be able to put people in jail as a last resort to coerce behaviour, or indeed go to war and kill people, And the last resort, it isn't actually physical violence, although that does happen. The last resort is to make you indigent, is to take your job away from you. And we know that from previous episodes of extreme illiberalism going into dictatorship. The early threat is always that you will lose your job. That's what happens as dictatorships start to rise, that if you say anything, like that, that's why kids joined the Hitler Youth, is their parents were afraid of losing their jobs. It's what happened, in the Soviet Union. People went along because they didn't want to not get work. And obviously they're very extreme examples, but I lived in Brazil, and there was a much softer dictatorship in Brazil before I was there, a long time before I was there. And it's social coercion, it's an economic coercion, that if you do not say the words, you will be out on the street and your family will have no food. But you don't have to say that, you just say be kind, and the or else is silent.